Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the MBE Enterprise Podcast, where we talk about money, business, and entrepreneurship with some of the brightest minds I know. Today, I am joined by entrepreneur and owner of West Metro Solutions, John Costello. John, how are we doing this evening?
Good. Thanks for having me on here, Matthew.
I am extremely excited. John, I just actually mentioned to you, you are officially the first guest I'm having on that I didn't have kind of a prior, I'd never met before. I didn't have a prior relationship with. So this is pretty exciting for hopefully you and also myself to kind of really dabble out. And that was the whole reason one of the main reasons anyway, I started this podcast in the first place is kind of just further connect with people and learn from exactly what I said, the brightest minds that I can find. So I'm really looking forward to this one, John. And to start us off, can we just kind of take me back, right, to the origins of West Metro Solutions? How did this come up? You mentioned you're still, you're a senior perhaps or junior in college this year.
Yeah.
Junior in college this year. And, a lot of people don't have their own business going or own their own company when they're still in college. So kind of take me back to how it all started, maybe a little bit of the story and kind of where it's at today.
Yeah. I will say right off the bat, this isn't the first business I've been a part of. I mean, we can get into that later, but really, it started with COVID, and well, I probably should back up even more. So, I'm going to just start from the top here. So when I was 15, I had a job at a grocery store in my local town, right, and they paid me like $8 an hour, and it was like just like one of those like standard cashier jobs. And I just remember like thinking like I worked there for like 9 months, and I just didn't like it at all. Like it was just a grind every day. I didn't really want to be there, And at one point, I wanted to quit, and a lot of my friends worked at like Chipotle and stuff, and I was like, I don't want to work with my friends over at Chipotle. And my parents told me, they said, if you quit at this job, we won't let you get another job, because they were like, you're not going to just do this like hop between job stuff. It was like the best thing that they've ever said to me. It was actually the best thing that they've ever said to me. They're like, this is the only shot you get. Okay, you're not going to like the other jobs anymore. So I was like, okay, I need to figure this out then, because like I can't keep doing that. I'm like, and then I was like, I was getting like really deep with it. I'm like, if this is like the rest of my life. So I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. So I tapped into my roots from like fourth grade, because in like fourth grade, we lived on a farm and stuff. So we had like chickens and pig and horse and all that. So we had a lot of like excess eggs, because we had like 50 chickens. So I'd sell them at the farmer's market in town. I did that like fourth grade, right? And I loved it. But then we moved to a ranch instead of a farm, and then chickens went away, whatever. So I tapped into those roots, and I said, I gotta start something up myself here. So, I just kind of did like the standard business, like sell stuff on eBay, like go thrifting, sell it on eBay. And so I did that for like a year, and that's what got me out of the grocery store. It was awesome, because being paid that low made it really easy to match the wage. So it wasn't like I was like, oh man, I'm taking a big blow to my, what I was making. So tap back into that. But the thing is that it just was never like enough. Like I kept wanting to grow it bigger, but you can't really scale that. You can't scale thrifting. There's a limit, So, I had been looking for other opportunities, and I started like one of those like social media marketing. I was like 16 at the time. Like I wouldn't do that now, but at the time I was caught up in the whole like, oh yeah, easy money, and I was like, oh, I could totally pull this off. Didn't work out. Well, that was really the only business that I started in between, because that was my junior year of high school, and that was right before COVID hit. But once COVID hit, it was like I had all this time in my hands, because we were all remote, and there was like in the same kind of like, because I didn't just thrift to find stuff. Like, you could find stuff on like Craigslist and Facebook. Like there were a lot of different avenues for finding things to like resell. And in some of those like kind of like random like free on Craigslist stuff, I would just like see like all this new like office stuff, because all the offices were up. And then at one point I just found cubes, and I'm like there's like I just kind of like was like, that's it. I don't know what it was. It was just, that's it. So I was with my friends the day I found the first set of cubes, and I just told them, I was like, I found it in the morning, then I hung out with them later in the afternoon, and I'd been thinking about it all day. I mean, it was just like totally in my mind. I was like, there's got to be something in that. So I sent my dad a text earlier today. And I'm like, what do you think about this, Dad? He called me when I'm with my friends. He's like, John, like we gotta talk to your mom, because like I don't know how you're gonna take this stuff, but like you might be onto something. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. Like I'm like, if my dad's giving me like because my dad like does not lie to me. Like he told me the social media thing was a bad idea. He is so honest and he's so right about like everything he says. So then I just said, I go to my friends and I'm like, guys, like you guys are trying to take these cubes like tomorrow, and I didn't even like hit the okay or anything. It was just like, let's get this done. And all my friends were on board because I was like, I didn't know what it was worth, but at the time, if the three of us, because it was three of my friends, I'm like, if the three of us could make $500 on this, like, and split it, that would still be crazy because we're like 16. It's like that's good money. So I got my friends on board. We called up the guy. We took the furniture, and that first job was so much work because we walked in there. We brought like every tool you could think. I mean, we had like no idea. Like we didn't know anything about cubes, right? Like it was like we just showed up and we're like, okay, we're gonna take this stuff, I guess. And the owner of the company was like, I can't. Like it was just like a bunch of like kids showed up in his office. It was a really bizarre experience, but we took the stuff, we put it in my basement, and then it was like I didn't know how to sell it because like I didn't even know like the dimensions or like I didn't know anything. So at one point I finally grinded it out, and a month later I was able to sell the first set of 10 to a company down in Iowa. We did the install and everything, and we did like really well on it. I mean, at the time I thought because there was like we had like no cost into it, so we made like $7,000 like the first go around, and it was like, whoa, that was way more than anyone was anticipating. And it was like, okay, we need to like keep doing this, guys. Like we need to keep doing this. So I just kept grinding to find more cubes, and I just kept finding more and more and more. And what happened at first was like, okay, I took one set, and then it was like, and then I was saying more cubes, so I had to throw them in my garage to the basement, and then we started to rent trailers, and then it just scaled up, just very naturally. Because then it was like by the third job we did, well, that was when my parents stopped letting me store stuff in the house. Like, you need to get a storage unit. So then we got like a really small storage unit, and we'd rent like U-Haul trailers behind my friend's car, and then we started taking larger volumes. And then it was like, okay, now we need a bigger space. And then pretty soon we were renting like the 28-foot box trucks you see on the road. And then it was like at some point, like my friends just kind of had enough. And they kind of stopped doing it. So I started doing it with my cousin, who is like 25. And he was what really allowed me to do a lot of the stuff early on, because like I wasn't old enough to rent. Well, actually, no, my cousin was in on it pretty early because, yeah, I wasn't able to rent storage units. I wasn't able to rent trucks, trailers, any of that stuff. So I got my cousin on board. My friend stopped. My cousin came on. And then eventually my cousin dropped off. And then it was just me doing it. And then pretty soon it was like I was renting, I was like subleasing like warehouse space. It was like a lot of space. And it was just, it kept growing. And now, really the entire model's changed. Like now I operate with like a decentralized business model. So I do a lot of the operations in my business. I would say like 30% are in Minnesota now, but the majority is in Texas and Arizona. That's where I do everything pretty much. And yeah, so yeah, that's kind of like how it picked up. Yeah.
John, let's get into that business model you mentioned a little bit more. So I'm following you pretty well. First of all, when you say cubes, you're talking like office cubicles, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I was pretty sure, but I figured I'd clarify for anyone. And getting into that business model, I think it's pretty straightforward, obviously, right away, what you were doing. You explained it well. You mentioned it's kind of decentralized now. You're doing more work in Texas area, different areas. clearly areas that you aren't actually physically in all the time, at least. Kind of describe that a little bit more, how it's kind of shifted, and maybe what caused you also to make that shift or recognize that the shift was needed.
Well, I guess the initial thought in my head was, the first thought that I had was, there's not enough furniture for me to buy in Minnesota. So I need to find furniture to buy in other states. So that was the initial thought. So like 2 summers ago, I think it was like my senior year in high school, me and my girlfriend at the time, we flew out to San Francisco because I had to check out like an office full of stuff, and I was going to warehouse the stuff remotely here. And I wound up not taking the product when I was there because it wasn't quite right. And, and I was really stressed, like while I was in California. Like I was like, okay, like, am I really going to like hold inventory in California? That's kind of a big step. So what wound up happening on account of that was, I was like, okay, well, I need to get out of state. How do I do it? So now I have a network of people that I work around. So I tap into people's inventories now, is what I can do. And the thing is that I can sell a large enough volume, like through the vendors that I work with, where I can get a really steep discount on the furniture. So I guess it's like essentially like a wholesale situation. I don't really like to look at it. Well, I guess that's probably how like a big company would operate, because it feels more exclusive than just buying and selling. I mean, I actually know the people that I work with. So I have relationships with a few companies, in Arizona, Texas. I know some people in California now because of that experience. And then I just went to Singapore and I established some connections over there. And well, that's been like a 180 kind of, like, it's like, I mean, if you want to talk about like cheap furniture, it's like, okay, I'm really able to get my costs down getting over into Asia. So that's kind of been the way I've been doing it now, has been just partnering with all these companies, flying out there, meeting with them, going out to lunch with them, whatever, getting to know them, and then setting up a good deal for me so that I can still sell furniture to my customers at a very fair price. And I've had a harder time with that in Minnesota, because you could say, well, why don't you just source in Minnesota? There's other people that you could source from here. The pricing is different throughout the country. It's really weird. It's made more sense for me to buy in the South. And I mean, I've literally had jobs where I've shipped furniture from Arizona to Minnesota because it was so much cheaper to do that. No, but the model, the decentralized model has just been so great, because now it's like I want to grow into new states. So now the whole mission is how to get freight cheap. And by getting freight cheap, I just need to be in more states. So it's like Texas and Arizona, but if I could get into North Carolina, I mean, those are like key states for me. It's Washington State and North Carolina. Those are 2 states that I would really want to be in, because for some reason, freight from Phoenix to Washington is really expensive. I don't know why, and I can't close jobs there because I'm too expensive. And same with out east. I do some work in New York, but not as much as I'd like to. But if I could get these relationships on the East Coast too, then I could really get my freight down there. So now it's like a game of like, how do I game the freight? Like, how can I get that freight down? But and the other thing too is I work with different products than I did before too. I used to be exclusively used, and now I work with refurbished and new. So Singapore has been my avenue into the new furniture, because they manufacture it, right? So I'm talking with the people that manufacture the furniture, which is crazy, because I mean, my reps in town, even they don't even know the manufacturers. But I mean, I said, well, I'm going to cut the middleman out and go there. So, like companies in town will work with places like Freon. Well, Freon knows the manufacturers in China and, Malaysia and whatever. They know those manufacturers, and then they're kind of the broker. And then people like me buy from Freon. But I just said, I can't. The thing is that Freon or, Open Plan or all of these, like, I guess, we would call them manufacturers, but there's, I mean, like they said, there's still somebody else behind them. They won't sell to me because I don't meet all the requirements. I don't have a showroom. I don't have a staff of a dozen people. I don't have $10 million in annual revenue. Like they require, like they want a high bar. I don't have $1 million line of credit. Like I don't have things that would get me the license to sell their product. So I'm like, I need to work around that. I can't get the license through these big dealers, right? I mean, like the cream of the crop is getting the Herman Miller license. No one I work with can even get that. But I can't even get the mid-range ones, and I don't want them because what I'm learning is that if I actually just put myself out there and go there, I mean, I can beat everyone then. Then it's like I can beat everyone. And the thing is that just nobody's willing to do that. But if more people are willing to do that, I think they could find the same kind of opportunities. But yeah, so Asia has been the opportunity for new furniture. A lot of these vendors I work with, they do refurbished. They are capable of refurbishing cubes. So what I'll do is I'll buy the fabric, and so my customer will come to me and they'll say, well, we don't want to spend new dollars. We want nice stuff for cheap. And that's where the refurbished is great, because I'll say, well, what color do you want? Okay, we strip down the panels to their cores. I buy the fabric, and then we can put their choice of fabric on the panels. They have machines that do them. They're really cool. They can staple a whole frame in like a minute. It's crazy. So I do that. And that's super cool. And that's been like the ticket into a lot of growth as well, has been being able to sell exactly what my customers need. Because like in the past, the other problem with the used stuff is that it's like, like I only have this height, like the panel is only this high. I can't make it taller or shorter. Or like the dimensions are this. So if I have a customer come to me and say, I want a 5x5, I'm like, sorry, we only have 3-foot panels. There's no way to make an odd number. It's like, well, we're going to make it a 6x6. Well, that's not going to work. Okay, he's not my customer anymore. And now I can do whatever I want. I can sell to anyone, and I can really do it for any price point because I have access to all three: used, refurbished, new. So it's like, oh, okay, that's out of your price point. Okay, well, we can put you at a used option, and I can find used all over the country still too. I probably shouldn't have made it seem like I've cut that out. I've not done that.
John, there's a ton of things you brought up there that I want to get into, but first of all, consistency and persistency are extremely pivotal and key for any entrepreneur, right? I can't imagine that you ever thought necessarily that you would become this, master, this have this vast amount of knowledge in the category of like office cubicles and furniture like that. Am I correct in saying that wasn't maybe when you were younger, that wasn't maybe necessarily a dream passion of yours? Like a lot of people want to play. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at there. So how important would you say is that consistency of like just sticking with it, right? A lot of people get into something that they think they might be interested in. They don't stick with it long enough to actually get good at it, right? It sounds obvious, but so many people kind of want a quick way to get money, right? A quick fix. And the fact that you were not flipping, but kind of started out with like flipping some of this stuff essentially, that was able to get you some revenue right away, which is kind of nice. But can you just speak to kind of the consistency side of things, persistency, and just you kept at it? It'd be easy for someone to look at you now and be like, well, yeah, you have all these customers, you have all these connections, you have everything. But you obviously didn't have that right away, right? And now you have the knowledge base that you can also pivot accordingly or, make switches within your business model that you deem necessary because you have the knowledge to do that as well. So just kind of speak to the importance of that a little bit, John.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that because it's kind of like a double-edged sword with like the consistency and never giving up. Because, I think, and I think this is what I learned like thrifting, because like you're turning over so many products, like so many different products, right? Like I have no idea how this will sell versus this and what it'll sell for and how, like you're selling just like anything. And I really thought that was good experience because I have like I feel like what it's kind of given me is it's given me this like radar for like good opportunities and bad ones. Like I've kind of developed an ability to like identify like what's worth sticking with, because like there are certainly things that are just not worth sticking with. So I mean, I've started a fire pit company. I've created this like it's called the Sono Pack. It's like a portable JBL holder. It doesn't exist for some reason. I made that when I was in the cross country team. Like, there's no way to hold my JBL on my back when me and my friends are trying to run and listen to music. I made that. I started a fire pit, like manufacturing company. That didn't work out. Started that marketing thing, didn't work out. The eBay thing didn't work out. And it's like I've like learned like what it feels like for something to be like, oh, this is it. And with the cubes, I immediately got that. And it's like, and I almost think that that's like how any business should feel. Like it, not to say it shouldn't feel like a grind and a struggle, but it's like it should just click. It shouldn't feel like, well, does this even make sense? The thing is with the cubes is that it immediately made sense. Before I even had my first sale, it was like, okay, this makes sense. I just need to sell this product that I already own. It's not like I have to convince somebody that this is worth something. And, it's intangible, very tangible. If someone wants it, they'll buy it. And I sold it. And I mean, what really like kept me going was like the fact that like at first, at least, especially at first, every deal I made was pushing the needle like exponentially further. Cause it's like these are, I mean, this is like, to companies that I sell to, I mean, these are like capital purchases. I mean, this is like big dollar purchases to the, the businesses I sell to. So for me, it's like that kind of income is like, I mean, it's just like it's just like one deal just like leaps you into this next category, this, next echelon of like success and, like where the business is at. Now it's definitely slowed down. And that's kind of the one thing that I'm trying to figure out now is how to pick that pace back up. Because, when you say consistency, it's like at this point I'm consistently closing jobs and I'm consistently doing the work. And I see it kind of more so as just a job. But I do want to tap back into like my like roots or whatever. And like how do I just like scale? Because like 2 years ago, between 2 years ago and last year. So last year was when I made that business model switch. And I 5 times my revenue by making that switch. And this year I've like, I've grown at about 50% since last year. So it was like 500% and now 50%, which is growth. But like, I want to get back to that exponential kind of level, and, I'm hoping, this stuff going on over in Asia could help. I'm working on a job with them right now, a really big one. That could be a huge opportunity. And then, like other things like getting into the media. Like this morning, I met with the Star Tribune. They were like doing this whole like photo shoot or whatever because they're getting into an article. And it's like I'm trying to do what I can to like grow, but I'm like running out of ideas, I guess. It's like, well, do I change the business model again? I mean, it's like what else can I do? But like, I think it's really just like those things kind of come to you. You just need to stick with it. As long as you're making money, you're kind of fine. I mean, because if like with this business, yeah, I mean, it's like if it just completely dried up, I'd have to stop. Because what I was saying about like you get a good feeling about businesses and you don't. I mean, they're like pivoting can be pivoting out of an entire business. Like knowing when to give up, right? Like there are some companies where it's like, never give up. And it's like, no, that is not always the best idea. Like if I would have just sunk everything into that Sono Pack thing, I mean, I'd be broke right now. I mean, I could have just kept pumping money into it. And I spent like $2,000 in the thing. And I was like, oh, okay, this is going nowhere. Like cutting this off. I'm not going to just keep sinking money in. But yeah, I think that answers your question. I hope. I mean, how else can you follow up with that?
No, I think that did an excellent job. And one thing I guess to follow up a little bit would be, well, first of all, have you ever considered like a strategic partner, anything like that, bringing on someone who might be, might have some experience in the scaling, I guess the objective of scaling, might have some experience in that. Has that ever been something you've considered? Because obviously the business model itself, right, doesn't necessarily require someone. You are able to do it. But kind of for that growth perspective, I'm just totally curious here.
Like I mean, like people have told me that before, but it's like coming out of it. Like I started this with like multiple. I mean, I in total I've had like five different partners in this business, and that was like all at the beginning. That was like all like the first year, and like it just like no one was that like no one from my experience. It's just been like nobody really wanted to take it to the next level. So I'm thinking like whoever I get on board with this is just going to want too much money and not do enough work. Because like I want somebody to 10x the business, but like I don't know who I can talk to and they could actually pull it off. Because that's the other thing too is like, well, everyone wants to make money. I mean, I could probably get like 20 people like, yeah, I'll take equity in my company and I'll say I'll grow it, but it's like, will you actually grow it? You know what I mean? It's like, are you actually gonna deliver? And that's kind of the thing. Cause like when I was starting this, it was like, I mean, it was fine because we were like high schoolers and stuff. Everyone just wanted to make like a quick buck. But I was thinking in my head, like, this has some real potential. And I don't know what my friends were thinking, but I don't think they were thinking that. And that's why it just didn't work as like a long-term partnership because like I can't give up equity and you have a serious stake in this and you're not delivering 10, 20, 50x results. I mean, I can't deal with like I'm just pushing paper because then it's like what am I doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, certainly. I mean, certainly you spoke to that. Like there has to be that trust aspect and there has to be, the belief that they will actually deliver on what they're saying. Cause yeah, you could have that. You said, 20 or a dozen or whatever the number you said was. I would bet there'd be thousands of people lining up at the door just to try and get some equity, to try and make a quick buck, make some money off what you've already built. Right. And then say, oh yeah, I can grow it, certainly. But I think you have the right mindset there. I do think, maybe a balance going forward of learning how, and this is totally coming from someone, I'm not trying to give you advice here, but, you know, recognizing when it is a good opportunity to pair if that situation presents itself. You know what I mean? Not totally being closed off to it, to the idea of maybe if there is someone who could actually deliver, right, and 50x your company, obviously you'd seriously consider that. But I think just that'd be important. It could help you.
the closest thing that I can think to what you're saying is I mean, I'm certainly not there yet, but I've thought like, what if I just like started buying up other office furniture stores? And that's if I did anything, that's where my head would go. I want all your employees. I mean, because like I work with like my vendors. I want to buy my, you know what I mean? If at some point I could be in a position where I could just buy out my vendors and just like run the town and keep the employees. Like, I mean, if you could even, they'd never do this. If you could hire on the owner as like, if you could hire
Yeah.
the owner to work under you. I don't know if that would ever work, but like that's what I want. I mean, for me, I don't. I have never met somebody. I have never met somebody that I would trust to grow my business. I'm not sure if I have that I would trust selling my Well, no, that's the thing. The people that I work with, I could trust that they can sell product because I mean they already do sell product. They sell it to me. So what I would prefer would be buy a furniture store, keep all their employees, and now I have all their reps. Because what I need people to sell product. I mean, that's my big thing. But in terms of like growing it, I mean, I'd have to meet like I'd have to meet somebody that I'd trust my life with kind of person. You know what I mean? Like it would need to really click. I've just never met somebody like that. And I mean,
Definitely.
maybe to be fair, I guess I'm not really looking, but the thing is, if I started looking, I mean, I'd probably, like you said, I'd have 1,000 people that would all be like, "Oh, I'm candidate number 364 for this position." It's like I mean, it's like, come on.
Well, and that's kind of what I mean with that balance, John, of like not actively looking maybe and really trying to seek it out so that you accept someone that's not to the standards that you want, right? And that's clearly not the situation you're in. But just if this, great opportunity were to present itself down the road, that you wouldn't just maybe immediately say no to it because you're just so used to not trusting them. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I was getting at.
Oh, that would be a situation. That would be a situation that I'd be interested in. If they offered something, like if they could bring something tangible to the table right off the bat, then I'd like that. I would like that. But it's just like, I guess I only can think in terms of like my college friends, and I'm like there's nobody that I know in college that like can like bring something tangible to the table. If somebody came to me and they're like, look, like cut me in on this business, and like I have like I have a refurbishing operation at, I have my own refurbishing operation at home or something, give me some equity. Well, then maybe, yeah, but I've never, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
where do you find that person? If I could, though, maybe,
Yeah.
like, I,
We've talked a lot about kind of this topic of scalability here, and how that's kind of the next hurdle you're trying to jump over is scale to that next level. How important do you think it is for beginning entrepreneurs? You mentioned you had other business ideas, and you maybe pursued them a little bit, but you're like, I don't know if this is really scalable. I don't think it's scalable to the point where I do want it to eventually be. How important do you think it is for beginning entrepreneurs to kind of look through that lens right away when they're starting their company? Or is it more important to just, take action on whatever the idea is? But you brought up a good point earlier of everyone talks about the consistency side of things, right? And the persistency side of things. No one really talks about, what if your idea sucks, right? Like, what if it actually is just a bad idea and you shouldn't continue to waste money and time pouring it into that idea, right? So I guess what I'm kind of wondering is two things of, do you have advice for any beginning entrepreneurs on how to kind of navigate whether their idea is, worth pursuing? And then does that kind of scalability and that upside tie into that directly, would you say?
I would say, like, if you want to get started in something, just don't just do like just do the conventional stuff. Like, I feel like so many people try and like start these like crazy products, or like people like I don't know, like I feel like people get kind of like crazy with it, like, or their expectation is that like this first business I'm gonna make $1 million, and it's like, I think if you're starting from nothing, it's like, well, you should just go like, yeah, I'm gonna go like thrifting for like t-shirts, because it's like, I think you need to get the fundamentals down first. And it's like, well, I've gone back and forth on this because I've actually thought this very same thing. Like, well, like maybe I should have just been looking for things like cubes all along. Like, I should have just not even like thought about thrifting, and I should have just been like chasing these big things. But like, I wouldn't have been able to identify it as a good opportunity. I don't even know if I would have like yeah, I don't think I'd be able to identify it. I mean, because I sold like seriously hundreds of unique items. I mean, I did the thrifting. I mean, I grinded that. So it's like, I totally got this like innate ability to just like go, okay, there's like, I still go to like Goodwill for like the fun of it. And it's like, because I've done this with my friends. I've like tried to get them into the eBay thing. And it's so much fun for me. It's like, I'll go there and I'll be like, yeah, buy that. You'll make money on that. And I tell them it won't be right away. Sometimes you'll have to wait a while. They'll call me 8 months later, like, it did sell, Jim. And I'm like, I told you it would sell. Because it's like, you just need to get the basics down. You need to get your head around bookkeeping. Like, you need to manage your money. Like, I mean, that is like so fundamental. I didn't do this at first with the thrifting thing. My dad told me, he's like, John, how do you even know you're making money right now? I'm like, good point. I don't really have like my bank account has more money in it than the last. That's BS. I mean, you need to be able to manage your books, okay? And now with my business that is so essential, I mean, if my dad wouldn't have told me that, I'd be screwed right now. I mean, because like cash flow is a real thing. Like, I'm sitting on an amount of money that is like my book numbers. What I'm actually going to declare as income at the end of this year is way different than what's in my account. I mean, cash flow has become such a real thing to me, and I'm like, if you want to go anywhere in business, like, you need to get your head around numbers, because you ain't ready for it to get real if you don't have your head around cash flow. I mean, that is like cash flow is like is I mean, that like controls my world right now a little bit. And I mean, not really in a bad way. Last year it was bad. I fixed it. I fixed it. Okay. I used to have this big accounts receivable balance, huge astronomical balance, way, way out of line. And then I've gotten really tight with my customers. Like, nope, cash up front. Like I don't do terms because then people don't pay on the terms. And that's the thing. Like people that have never started a business will say, whoa, the terms were net 30. And it's like, no, it says net 30 and then they pay you net 60. And what am I going to do? Sue them? Well, yeah, you can technically sue. I'm not going to sue my, it's like, you just need to start small. You just need a grasp of like, just like how things actually work. Maybe you could just jump into like some big thing, but I think if it works out, I think you'd be in over your head, honestly. I think you do need to start with something, like you need to take it like in bite-sized chunks,
If you jump into a massive thing like that and it does explode like you're talking about, you're probably hiring someone to do that process either way. You know what I mean? If it's really that big right away, like that quick. And
Oh
what
man,
you're
if it
kind
was
of
so big you were hiring somebody right off the bat. Thing is, how would you even hire somebody? I don't even know. Like, I don't have any employees personally because I don't even know like how to do that. Like, I have contractors. Contractors are so easy. They're so easy. Okay, vendors so easy, but employees, I still don't even know how to manage that. Like, I oh man, I like if I was in a position today where I needed to hire somebody, I'd be like, I'd be kind of nervous. Like, I'd be kind of like, I don't actually
well, you've
know.
never done it before.
I know. So if
And
you're
that's
like, I don't know bookkeeping, I don't know like the product that I'm selling really, I don't know like marketing, I don't know this, and now I'm hiring somebody, and then it's like, well, what are the tax implications of that? I mean, those are real things. I mean, it's like, what's the form you have to fill out to have an employee? I don't even know it. I mean, like, I don't work with those tax forms, but it's like do you know the name of it? I don't know. There's like because you have to
it
pay
slips my
the.
mind. Yeah, no, because I also don't have employees.
I mean, it's like, well, how do you do that? And then how do you pick the right person? And then the other question is like, what role do you even give them? Because like I've thought like, well, if I hired a rep, it'd be like, what exactly does my rep do? Like, what are the boundaries of their job title? Because I would never want to hire somebody and it's like, well, your job's just to plug holes when I'm busy. You're not going to get somebody that's really invested in their job doing that. And I need quality salespeople, right? And the other thing that I've thought is, at least for me, it's like if I had a rep just do like everything, I'd be thinking like, well, this guy might just like steal my business. I don't know. I mean, I've heard of it happening where it's like, well, okay, like I know everything about what you do. I know all your contacts. Because it's like I would need to set some boundaries up with my employees where it's like you're not going to like know my entire business system because then like you'd be like, well, fuck, I'll just do it myself. I mean, I can't have that.
Mhm. I think you're getting at a major point here, which is kind of the idea of two things. First off, you don't know what you don't know, right? That's kind of what you started with. You have to get into something and just experience business, whether it's just, going on Craigslist or eBay and flipping products, right? To get just the basic understanding of cash flows, like you talked about, right? Supply and demand. That will then give you an idea of which products sell, which ones don't. You start to develop an understanding of the market you're working in. And if it's not in flipping, it's in something else. But either way, you're getting involved in it. And then you're slowly cultivating that knowledge base and understanding more and more and more and allowing yourself the ability to make higher and higher level of decisions, right? Like you pivoted your entire business model after years. You wouldn't have been able to do that right away because you wouldn't even have known the business side of things, the market itself of that would even made sense. Like you wouldn't have known what you didn't know. You know what I mean? And the other thing you got into a little bit was a kind of a personal philosophy I have, which is the idea of in life and in business, but in life, you can't skip steps, right? You can't just go from making, no money to making $1 million in 2 months. Like you won't it's possible, but you won't necessarily know how to handle it. All the different things, once again, that you don't even know what you don't know, all the challenges that would present. You wouldn't have the understanding of the market and the business model itself and all of that goes into it. And you'll often find people that do skip steps, right? Someone makes a ton of money on a stock trade or a crypto trade. They make a ton of money quick. And what do? They generally lose it or spend it. Yeah. Either way, they won't have it. Or, you think of lottery winners, right? You're talking many, many steps those people are skipping. 99% of them end up bankrupt, I think is the number. Like you have statistics like that just kind of tell you the idea of maybe you could skip a step here or there, depending on how you define it. But the general philosophy of you have to go up the stairs, right? You don't just get to shoot up on a rocket ship into the sky and make millions right away. That's just not how it works. So I
I think
think
it's interesting you say that too, though, because like I think a lot of people do think about business kind of like the lottery. Like, well, I just picked right, and it was almost like I just won. Now I win. But it's like you got to step back and think like okay, if I got into cubes and I made a million, I wouldn't have been able to handle like like you just think like I made $1 million, but it's like you gotta fulfill, you gotta actually fulfill the sale, you know, and it's like I mean, even now, if I had one job that was $1 million, I'd be stressing. I, like that's the thing. Like you couldn't handle that volume. I mean, it's like it's not like you just get the money and it's like I made $1 million business. You actually there's a whole operations piece that I'm not like. That's I mean, unfortunately, I'm the only one doing it. It's like that's like my. Well, I don't want to say that. Well, but it kind of is. Everyone has strong suits and weak suits. Like my weak suit is the operations. Like I really like selling, but you know, operations is challenging for me. And it's like what I'm learning is like, yeah, like, dude, you can't just like take $1 million from somebody and then go, I don't actually know how to deliver on this. Like I actually don't know how to deliver on this. I shouldn't say weak suit because I always deliver. I always do a good job, but it's just like it's harder for me. It's just more challenging. It's like it it makes me more nervous, you know, like because I'm like, oh man, the truck's got to show up on time. Like the product's got to be packed well. You know, like the installers need to show up on time. There can't be any missing parts. Like there's just so many like little things, and it's like it all needs to work. You know, and it's like the larger the project, it's like it just turns into a million opportunities for problems, and it's just there's always problems. There's always problems.
And that right there brings up a prime example of kind of what we're talking about. Like you fed right into it, and the idea of if you were a total beginner, you wouldn't even know that you'd be thinking, oh, $1 million, that's going to be all sunshine and rainbows. That's going to be amazing. I'm gonna make all this money. Where you have to get to the level of understanding, the point where you're like, you know, actually, it's a great opportunity, but it will present a ton of challenges that I will need to be ready to face as well. It's not just going to be a walk in the park, as they would say. So
Yeah.
I think that even in the sense of challenges, it ties in really well. And another thing, switching gears here a little bit, John, we've talked about kind of the scalability and the challenges side of things a bit. Going back to relationships, right? You brought up the fact that you have those kind of key relationships in Texas, Arizona, Singapore now you mentioned, of how you've just kind of gone out and however you became connected with them, you're connected with them now. Can you speak to the importance of relationships in business? And it kind of walks right along with the consistency side of things, because right when you're starting out, you're not going to have those relationships, right? Unless if you're smart, you'll maybe go in an area that you already do have some connections or relationships. That would maybe be a strategy, but a lot of times you won't, and you have to cultivate those and develop those. Do you have any, tips, strategies for doing so? And then also just kind of how have they played a major role in the growth of your company?
Well, like right off the bat, I'm going to rip off that one line. Your network is your net worth. Oh, it's like it's so true. Like yeah, it's all about who you know. It's all about who you know. If you're saying like how do you get connected with people, well, that's a loaded question a little bit because like it for me, it's like the furniture industry. So it's like you're not going to go to some like St. Thomas like networking event and find all these furniture people. Like no, like I meet people at like they got like conventions. Like they got a convention in Orlando in February. I'm going to. It's like there. It's. I think when you get into it a little bit more, it turns into like an industry focused thing, and then you have to figure out like what does your industry do to like meet other people in your industry. But then it's like, but the thing is that for me at least, I'm going to talk about me, and then I'm going to talk more generally. I think that might make it easier. Like for me at least, it's like I met like one person, right? It was the first installer I called when I started contracting installers instead of just me and my friends doing it. I just found that guy on the internet, but he knew he knew other furniture companies and installers, and he introduced me to him because I started doing a lot of work with him. And it's like, oh, well, you should start talking to this rep. Maybe you could sell his product. Oh, I can sell his product. Like that's how that works. And that was even like the first idea of like, oh, I can sell other people's products. and like, oh, these installers are better. And it's like one person has led to 5 people, and then those 5 people know another 5 people. And then it's like, oh, well, you really should talk to him. And the thing is, with my industry, at least, it doesn't seem as cutthroat as other industries. I don't really know why that is, but like that's the thing. There's no like monsters in my industry, and that's why it was probably easy for me to tap into it. There's no one that's like killing it. Like, look, I'm just gonna take everyone down. Everyone's like kind of like local ma and pa kind of people, and it's like everyone knows all the other players in the industry. Like, I'll talk to one of my reps and he'll say, well, I don't have that product, but go and call them up. It's like he's literally giving away business, but it's like that's how it works, and that's how that's how people know me in the industry, and that's how I know everyone else in the industry. It's like people know people in Arizona, people know people in Texas, people know people in California. Oh yeah, go talk to him. Yeah, he's a great guy. But like generally that's a little tougher, I guess. Like it's like if you were really just starting out, I think it is just kind of you at first, because like you can make a network, but like you can really make a useless network though. Like I will say that people don't say that enough. It isn't like just about like who you know, because it's like, well, it's about who you know. It's not just like knowing quantities of people. And I'm just like sitting here thinking like, okay, if you started a business, then you went to like some St. Thomas networking event, it's like you could get like virtually nothing out of that, because it's like you're gonna be talking to like an insurance rep, and you're like, dude, I sell like computer mouses. Like, I mean, it's just like, is it, well, do you guys need a general liability policy? I mean, it's like, you're not gonna find anyone that's like really, like maybe you could find maybe you could find customers. That's a part of your network. I go to these occasionally. I'm going to apply next year. I've been too young, but I've been invited as a guest. It's this like it's just like a breakfast thing. It's like it's at one of the country clubs in town here. It's like this little business thing, and they've been some customers of mine. Well, no, they've actually gotten me furniture. So those have been like random connections, but those guys are like they have like they're like seriously wealthy. I mean, it's like maybe if you can find some seriously wealthy people that are like it's like they're just dropping like scraps at you. Well, that actually could be how you do it. Actually, that no, that actually might maybe, but you need to be with like bougie people then. Like you can't go to some like casual networking event with people that are like, like I'm like a technician at Cargill. I mean, it's like that person isn't going to drop breadcrumbs that are going to be worth anything to you. But if you could get connected, like if you could go to some networking thing or figure out how to get into some networking thing with like really wealthy, like big time people, like then like, yeah, we've got, a bunch of junk in our office you got to clear out, and it's like a bunch of like really expensive stuff. And to them, they're like, man, just get rid of it. I mean, that's how it is though with some of these people. And that has been helpful to me. And like, I have experience with that, and it's like really cool. It's like, yeah, just clear this stuff out. And it's so that's a good one. But I think you kind of just need to fly solo until you kind of understand the industry a little bit,
And put yourself out there, kind of like you mentioned too. Like you didn't necessarily know exactly what you were looking for, so you went online and found the one guy, connected with him. Like you didn't beat around the bush, you just did it. You know what I mean? And then he eventually led you to more. And whether that's the case in every industry, who knows? But at the end of the day, like Nike has a pretty good slogan, right? Just do it. Like you got to just go out and meet them. And it is at the end of the day, in order to build a network of 100, really, really strong people in your industry that connect well to you, first you have to get one, and then two, and then three. That's usually how it works, right? So you might get groups, but at the end of the day, it has to start somewhere, and just putting yourself out there and just kind of doing it is, I think, a big key to that. And John, moving on here a little bit, how do you balance your time? You're running a company that's involved in multiple states. It's now an international company. You're getting involved with Singapore. Like you're also a college student, right? Like how do you balance just all your time? There's only 24 hours in the day. How often do you sleep? Once a week?
Well, I just don't. I mean, I just don't waste time. I guess like right off the bat, like I don't sit around and watch TV like ever. Like, I mean, people ask me like, what's your favorite movie? Like, oh, what do you like movie? I don't watch movies ever. I don't watch TV ever. I don't. play video games ever. Like, I don't, like, I mean, just like the easy things I just never do ever. And it's not like I have to force myself to. I'm just like straight up not that interested in it. Um, but like, I think it's kind of interesting because it doesn't really feel like that hard. It's just, you just need to like plug all the gaps in the day. Like there's so much wasted, like there's just so much like wasted time in the day. And it's like, you just need to be like always working. For me, it's just it's like I get like I wake up, make some breakfast, I work, and then I go to class. And then right before class starts, like the time before class, where like people are fumbling around getting water. I'm working, and then it's like we have a break in class. I'm working after class. I'm working. Sometimes I'm working in class, and then we get done with class, and I come home and I work, and then I grind out like a week's worth of homework in like a day or two. So I always am like I try to put school on autopilot. Like I try to like get really far ahead in school. Like it's like I just grind it out so I don't have to think about it. I mean, sometimes it's hard though. Like sometimes it's like it doesn't always work out that way. But a lot of the times I try to get like literally like a week or two ahead in school, and it's like, okay, I'm just showing up to class. I don't have to like, oh crap, I got this due, and then I got like all these customer problems. It's like I'm just working, and then I'm just like in class for an hour, and then I'm out of class, and I'm back to work.
Was this mindset a conscious decision, would you say, like a shift in your mind, or is it something that's always kind of come natural to you? Like you mentioned, I agree with you about, never watching TV shows, movies, video games, right? If you're really trying to build something, there's just not enough time in the day for that,
Mm-hmm.
And if there was more time, if there was time enough in the day for that, well, you could spend that time using it to get an advantage. So like either way, there's not enough time in the day for it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that was a conscious decision, a shift when you founded this company? You had to start doing that, or was it something that just kind of came innately to you?
No, it kind of just came innately. I mean, partly partly by necessity, partly because I just like it a lot. I mean, when I started, I was working more than I am now. Like I am actually working less than I was in high school. High school when this was completely ridiculously unmanageable. Because like how it is, you're locked into the school for 8 hours a day, and I'd literally be just like telling my teachers like I have to use the bathroom. No, I got a customer that I'm on the phone with. Like, man, it was hard. Like it was like and it was like, oh, thank God we had like those like hybrid days, like the flex days or whatever. That's how I was able to meet with customers. And that was when it was hands on. The hands on is what killed me, because it was like I had to like do all this physical stuff. Like I had to physically be driving the trucks around. I had to physically be doing this. It was just chaos. It's like, okay, I've got online school on a Wednesday. I'm throwing that in my pocket, and now I'm driving like a 28-foot Freightliner with like 20 grand in product. And it's like, I really should be in algebra right now, but I'm just driving a Freightliner. Like, I mean, it's like those scenarios, that was really stressful. I mean, I don't know if I really enjoyed that much. It was more necessity then. Now it's like, oh man, I love it. I mean, it's just like, it's just like, there's so much of a flow now to it. And it's like, I don't know, like the freedom that I have is what I like. It's like I'm in creative mode in Minecraft, and it's like I like that. It's like I'm playing Minecraft. It's just fun doing it.
Well, and you had to go through though that hard period, right? Where everyone nowadays, it's so trendy to be an entrepreneur. Everyone sees it on social media. They want to do it, right? It's not for everyone. Like you're talking about, you're in school, like you should have been in algebra. You're driving a Freightliner, trying to fulfill orders. Like you're constantly busy. It's absolutely chaos is what you're describing it as. Most people think like, oh yeah, I want the money down the road, duh, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't want the chaos that comes with it. It's kind of like we talked about earlier, the challenges of getting $1 million order, for example, where you're like,
Mm-hmm.
the average person, they wouldn't even know the challenges that go into that and fulfilling that, where you're like, yeah, I mean, it'd be a great opportunity, I'm sure. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, there's going to be a lot to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants the good without the bad, you know, and that's where you say
Mm-hmm.
it's super fun now. You just love it now. It's like creative mode on Minecraft.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good analogy. But you had to go through that time period where it was absolute chaos and it was not that. And I think that that's something that it's not necessarily for everyone. I think that's kind of, I brought this up on a previous episode too. It's like the idea that everyone, with the trendiness of it, everyone feels like they maybe need to be an entrepreneur, like they're lame if they do it. Like not everyone has to, you know what I mean? Or not everyone maybe is wired
Mm-hmm.
that way, because certainly not everyone's wired that way. That's exactly how it sounds, you know? And it's just that people don't, I think people get down on themselves then because they maybe think they should try and be an entrepreneur, and then they kind of realize the chaos of what it is, and then, you know, most entrepreneurs don't succeed, right? And then they get down on themselves because it's like, oh, I'm just working a 9 to 5, I'm just doing this. Like I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't want to sound like, it's not like I've done anything major yet by any means, you know what I mean? But it's just the idea of that you don't have to be it. You know, you don't have to be it to succeed. That there obviously has to be employees as well as employers, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I talked to my siblings about this, and they say exactly that. They're like, I don't know how you just work all day. There's more to life than working, John. They're in the med field. It's really weird. Everyone in my family's in the med field. I'm the only like business person, um, but yeah, I mean, and I get it. Like, but the thing is, they won't even like lie to me. Like, I feel like some people in like business school, like low key want the 9 to 5, but maybe they won't say it because like in business school, it's like you do. Like, I feel like that's for me, it's like everyone that I know, like they like kind of want to own their own business to like to some capacity. They're like interested in owning their business. So nobody will say it as straight up as my brother and sister, but they will be like, I could not handle coming home from work and then the work just following me. Like they're like, I could not handle the work just like always lingering around. And I mean, it's I think you do need to get used to that though. Like I don't think that you can just innately be into that because it is kind of weird. Like there's no like real downtime because it's like yeah, like sure I'm not working right now, but you're also always like thinking about it. Like you're always kind of thinking like, oh, how am I going to close that job? Like tomorrow's going to be a hard day because I got this coming up, and and it's like and it's like all you. I mean, it's like the littlest things. I mean, it's like the last couple of days I was kind of nervous about this morning because I mean, this is what I was stressing about. It was like I actually was doing no work until this morning, and it was like 30 minutes of work. But I spent so much time thinking about it because I'm thinking I'm going to have like a reporter and a photographer at my customer's office. So it's already just a weird situation. Like my customer's okay with me doing all this side quest stuff at his office. It's just weird. And I'm thinking, I don't actually know how to install the trim on this specific system of furniture. It was Herman Miller Ethos Space was named. I don't work with that product. It was kind of a one-off thing. And I'm like, oh, I actually don't know how to do it. So I'm thinking, crap, if I have my customer, a news reporter, and a photographer watching me, all of them watching me go, I don't know how to do this, guys. That's going to be really embarrassing. And I was thinking about that for a while. Or like, I got the wrong parts because I had to order the parts. It's not like my employer bought the parts and I went in to install. It's like I had to buy the parts and I had to install the parts. And I'm thinking, like, okay, that needs to like go well. Like, or that's gonna be really embarrassing. I mean, the problems can get really like way worse. I mean, I've had other things where it's like I remember we were shipping this product down to Waco, Texas from it was all coming out of the Hennepin County Government Center here. And there was like a lot of this like frameless glass stuff. It was like a lot of frameless glass, like a lot of frameless glass.
Like
And I'm
enough to
like
fill
thinking
enough to
like,
fill a sand trap once it's crushed down into sand.
um, no, okay, not enough to fill a sand. Okay, it wasn't, but it was like it was like 50 panes. I mean, that's not enough to fill a sand trap. But this is like expensive glass though, and like I was and like I didn't think it was packed very well. Like I'm sorry if my installers are listening. To this. I didn't think it was packed very well. I was like so nervous that it was all going to show up shattered. Like I was tweaking for days. I wasn't actually doing any work, but I'm sitting there going, bro, if that shows up broken, like what am I? And it was used product, so it's not like I could just replace it. Or if my customer made me replace it, I would have that new glass, dude. Thinking about that actually kind of scares me. Just thinking about that, no, you're just thinking all the time about the worst case scenarios, and I hate that. That's the one thing I hate about the job. It's just I always think the worst possible outcomes all the time. Yeah, the work never disappears.
Well, it's a necessary evil, the idea of, that your brain just doesn't ever shut off. But I think that's kind of a sign that it maybe is what's for you in a way, though. You know what I mean? Because I don't know. I've always felt that way too. Like once I'm start working on something, I won't be able to fall asleep because I'm just always thinking of it. Or I could try and go do something else. And there's lots of practices. They talk about meditation. They talk about other forms of things that get you to be able to kind of shut it off. And I'm sure those are beneficial. But it's also just I'll just be going and doing something random and I'm just thinking about it. It's always in the back of my head. You can have, you talked about how in the past, having partners too, and they're maybe not always trying to innovate it to a multi-billion dollar company, or grow it as big as possible. Right. And that's just kind of how my mind has always worked, as well as yours, it seems. And it's the idea of just, yeah, we're doing really well right now. How can we make it better? How can we, what's the next improvement we can make? How can we grow at this one more time? Yeah, we've grown it 87 times. How are we going to do the 88th? Why would we stay at 87? That kind of idea. And I think that's almost the mindset I don't know if you have to have it in a way, and maybe it'd be totally better if you didn't have that, because you would be able to separate, day-to-day activities from your work. It might be more beneficial. I don't know. Now I'm kind of the one rambling here, but it's an interesting thought to kind of have, because it's definitely, you may not love it. I certainly don't love it. You just said that you don't necessarily love that aspect of it, but it's kind of just how we're wired in a way too, so I certainly think that's interesting. And John, one more category I want to talk about here is the idea of personal finance, and investing, stocks. You're a double major in entrepreneurship and finance. You switched from accounting to finance, you mentioned, to pick up that finance major. What kind of not spending a ton of time on this, but what kind of led you to make that decision? And are there any philosophies that you have as far as personal finance or stock market investing goes, anything like that?
Well, I like to make sound and conservative investments, I'd say. In terms of stocks, I only buy two. And these two I know. I mean, that's the other thing too. Right off the bat, if you're not willing to read the prospectus before you buy a stock, don't buy the stock. You can go on TikTok, you can go on YouTube, and you're gonna find a bunch of crap. So you got to read the nitty gritty stuff. That's what I have learned is what actually is important. The S&P is a safe stock. So to me, it's almost just for the exercise of reading a prospectus. When you're buying the S&P, I mean, you're buying America with that. Well, that's Warren Buffett said that. I didn't say that, but you read the prospectus, okay? I buy the S&P 500. Right off the bat, right? Easy stock. I buy it. I'm buying America with it. And then I also buy Berkshire Hathaway. I can't afford their A shares. I buy their B shares. I wish I could see
I wish I could afford their A shares.
Oh, you know a little bit about that Berkshire Hathaway then too.
I know.
Okay, because I'm thinking that'd be a bigger flex than having a Ferrari. Oh, it'd be worth about as much as a Ferrari. It's I own Berk A. Oh, dude, I mean, if somebody said that, I'd be I don't care about your Ferrari or Lambo. I'd be oh, you own Berk A. You know what I mean? So I buy those two. Okay, I buy a lot less Berkshire Hathaway B because it's a sound investment, I think, but I still look at it as more speculative than the S&P. So it's probably a 90-10 split between the two. And my Roth IRA, I won't really buy any Berk with that. Because the other thing that I'm thinking too, I mean, as bad as this sounds, I'm kind of well, I'll probably buy a bunch of it. But if Warren Buffett dies, dude, what's going to happen? Because I trust him, but who's going to take over Berkshire?
Well, that's one of the biggest things with it. And, he's obviously getting up there in the years now. And, his partner, Charlie Munger, helps him out quite a bit with it, but he's also getting up there in the years. So yeah, that's actually a common kind of fear almost regarding kind of how that's going to go. And I think they've tried to do, all their investor meetings, quarterly meetings, updates. They try to do a pretty good job of showing that they are, training in, teaching the other people within the company on how their predecessors or the people that are going to be following them, kind of how to go about running it and making the sound investments that they've clearly done for the last 60, 70 years or whatever it's been. But that's definitely a fear among investors, is kind of what is going to happen. It is that unknown,
No, I try to be a little more, but I trust Warren Buffett's philosophy though. I mean, it's like he buys value. So it's like, well, if he walks away, like these companies aren't, they're still going to have intrinsic value. And it's like, I love the companies that he owns too. I read his book too. What's the Snowball? The Snowball by Alice something. I don't know. She did like the biography on him or whatever. And it's like, I love the companies he buys. I love the philosophies they have. I mean, it's like, it's like they don't ever, it's like American Express. I love American Express. Geico, well, I don't have insurance yet. But then it's like, they own like BNSF, like that Burlington Northern Santa Fe company. It's like they own it's like that. It doesn't get any better than that. So I love those two. That's what I'll buy. And then the other thing that I'm doing right now too is interest rates are great. Interest rates are phenomenal. I'm like such a, well, here's the thing with me. I shouldn't even say it's a conservative investment. It actually just makes logical sense for somebody like me. So I have a lot of my money in money market accounts. Like I would say it's like, oh man, what would be like the split? I would say it'd be like, yeah, like I'd say like 60% of my money is in these money market accounts, but I'm making like 4.88% in a savings account. And what's awesome about that for me is I need to hold a lot of cash in my business. I wish I could invest more. I need to hold a lot of cash. So I can just have my credit card draw straight from that account. So it's like, it's like I put a huge balance in my credit cards because like I got all these jobs racking up and whatnot. So it's like for an entire 30 days, I can collect interest on credit card purchases. It makes the payment and then I get the cash from my customers, whatever. And then I get all that cash back from my credit card. It probably sounds like rinky-dink investment philosophy, but it works for me because I've thought like if this, I don't know, I grab the pen. But if this keeps building up, I mean, I know interest rates will probably go back down, but I'm like in my head, this is like what I think would be like a sound way to go about things. Maybe it's like I want to like what if I could accumulate enough money in like a high yield account or like a bond or like a CD or something where it's like I'm going to get my money back, like it will cash flow, because like the thing is with stocks, it's like I don't intend on selling my stocks for like many years, like 30 years. So it's like that's not even like there's no cash there. That's just like a net worth kind of thing. But if I want like real cash flow, I'm thinking, what if I could just grow my net worth? Because like I'm not a big spender, okay? Grow my net worth, put them in all of these, kind of conservative investments that will like cash flow. Yeah, I'm gonna get the cash in a couple of years, whatever. That's how you pay your mortgage. That's how it's like maybe instead of buying cars with cash, you finance cars. Like I've played around with these ideas. It's like, well, if you just kept the principal balance on lock and you made payments on everything else, but you were able to finance that with interest you're earning, it's like that to me just seems like an OP strat for money. I mean, it's like I can pay my mortgage with the principal that I have in cash. It's like, oh, well, I mean, it's like, well, then you're set, right? I mean, it's like your life's just on easy mode. And that's what I've been thinking, because I don't like speculative stuff at all. I mean, this business, super conservative business, okay? Started with $400. That was like the total operating, like that was the total startup cost. It's like, I don't like guessing. I don't like big risks. I don't play around with that stuff, man. Like it's like I've worked too hard just to watch my money vanish. So,
Yeah, certainly. And one thing I want to go back to right away, you talked about how you kind of were a 60-40 split in the money markets to get those, those consistent returns with the interest rates being great right now for that. That's also because you need to retain a certain percentage of liquidity, right? If you didn't have access, but it's an important distinguishment to make for listeners, if you didn't need access to that money, you'd probably have that in more S&P 500, right? Or more Berkshire because of the long-term growth potential of those and average kind of rates of return. But I think that it's extremely smart that you're doing that with the money that you need to retain fairly liquid. Even though stocks are pretty liquid in general, this is more liquid, and the consistency aspect of it, I guess, is kind of what matters there. So I think I just wanted to make that kind of distinction right away. And the way you're handling it is extremely, extremely wise. It's definitely very legitimate. And the last thing I want to talk to you about here, John, a book. You mentioned you love reading. Is there one book that has been kind of the most influential for you? If you had to pick just one, would you be able to do that? And what was kind of the lesson, the most important lesson that you took out of that? Could be in business or in life in general.
So, man. Okay, I almost need to like break them down by like category almost, man. Like there's not just one. Okay, if I were to say one book, like it just depends on who you are. Like if you want me to recommend something depending on who you are, I would say like the overall just like best for your life book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Easy, like just drop the pen on that one. Like that is an excellent book. It is a phenomenal book. Okay. And it just, oh man. I mean, the key take, I mean, it's like, it's all about reframing your way of thinking. It's all about just like reframing how you think about things. Like it's like circle of what's it? The circle of influence and circle of concern. I mean, that's like the big one. It's like, well, stop thinking about things in your circle of concern, right? I'm not going to break down the whole book, but that one's amazing just for like life. Another great one is How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, that's phenomenal.
Just finished that one about, yeah. I just finished that one about a month ago or so. Yeah, it was very good. Definitely up there on my list.
It's like nothing even needs to be said about that one. It's just and it's like it's so logical. I mean, it's like you just think about. I mean, you will be a better person in life. You will make more friends. You will do better if you read that book. And then, sales book that I really like, The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy. That one is pretty good. Not like a million takes away from it, but there are some like one-liners that are just like that I just love from it. Like the one key thing is like this is like the one key thing in the book that they talk about. They're like, in a horse race, the horse that wins by a nose makes 10 times the prize money than the horse that loses by a nose. And in sales, it's the same way. And that was like a big click for me. You just need to win by a nose. Like you're a nose better than your competitor, you get the whole sale. You win.
And the inverse of that, just because you were close, even if you were right there.
Close doesn't count in sales, man. Close does not count. You won't make any money if you're close. You need to be the best. And that's the thing. That's why I love it. You got to be the best. I mean, there's such a, how can you not be working all the time if you're in sales? I mean, it's like, you need to be the best in sales. I love it. I love being competitive. I love competition. That's a good one. There's another funny line in that book. He just says the chapter, the title is called Long Hair, Short Sales List. And I just thought that was so funny. It was about like hygiene. It's like, okay, you need to like well trimmed, like no crap on your face, no long hair, no visible tattoos, no chains, no long hair, short sales record. Great one-liner. Okay. And then finally, what was there was one more book that I had there was one more book that I had in mind. I swear I had it. Oh, great investment book. Warren Buffett even talks about it in his that Snowball book, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham.
Figured you were going to say that. It's I haven't finished it. I've taken chapters out of it as I've gone through, but that's definitely one I know Buffett references all the time as his kind of handbook. So as soon as you said that, I was like, I bet that's going to be this one. But yeah.
I would love to read. About the other one too. Like I would almost just read it just to say I've read it. Securities analysis. That one. Oh man, like that one would be a tough read, but like I'd
I
love to
was
be
I
able
was
to be
gonna
like, yeah,
say
I've read that.
that they're a little, well, even the Intelligent Investor, I would say, is a little more of a dry kind of read for
Oh
someone
yeah.
who isn't into it,
Hmm.
which those people probably aren't even reading it in the first place. But yeah, the other one is certainly drier yet.
Oh my, like it's probably just all numbers. It's like, and I listen to a lot of stuff on Audible, so it's like they're audibly speaking numbers, and it's like, whoa, like that's well, but yeah, Mr. Market though, all these little things, great books, but there's so many good. I mean, there's just too many good ones, but those are probably the best, I'd say.
What's your thoughts on? I got to ask you this quick, John. Your thoughts on reading? Some people will get the idea that if they just read a ton of those really good books, that's somehow equates to taking action. How do you find kind of a balance with that? If you had to recommend someone a balance between just reading a bunch of it and actually like reading a couple and then taking some action and continuing to learn as you go, just like 30 seconds on that if you can.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I mean, if I'm going to be honest, I don't even know if it's worth reading the books unless you've done something. You don't have any like you don't have any like perspective in the book. Like it's like win by a nose. Well, what does that mean? You need to come into it like you don't have to come in with much, but you need to come into it with like some experience, some understanding, so that like you can like tie the concepts into your own life. Like, oh, this applies to this in my life. If you don't have that, like, what does it apply to? Like fill in the blank category. Like it needs to connect with something. It probably won't even be interesting if you can't connect it to anything. Why would you read yeah, like why would you read the psychology of selling if you're not in sales? You need to be in sales for it to mean anything to you. And you already need to be in sales. So I think do a little bit, read and work at the same time. I should have gotten into reading earlier. Okay, I should have gotten into it earlier, but like it would have been good to have like some baseline. Read, work, read, work, read, work, read, work, works your way up. You know what I mean? But I think
Definitely.
they go hand in hand.
Certainly. I think that I totally agree with that frame of mind. And John, we got to wrap it up here. I know we could talk for hours. It was a super interesting conversation. We're about an hour 20. Um, I really enjoyed this conversation. I thank you very much for coming on. It was a pleasure having you. And I'm wishing you the best of luck in all your future endeavors there.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Well, thanks for having me on here. This is super fun, actually. I gotta get back to my homework now. I got to lift tonight still. Could have kept talking, but oh wow, as we speak too, I got more work to do right there. So that's
Attaboy.
gonna keep me busy. It never ends, man. No, but yeah, good chatting with you, Matt.